Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 178, and I have a very special podcast prepared for you all today because I've dialed in a decode that I've been working on behind the scenes, but I just wanted to make sure that I really had everything ironed out before I shared it with you all. It will be discussing this World War III ritual going on in the world stage. It's very unfortunate to even talk about some of these things, but unfortunately that's the state of affairs that we're all faced with. So I will be getting into that today. Again, we're trying to stay neutral throughout what's happening. There's a lot of chaos unfolding and unfortunately more to come, but hopefully these decodes and this information that I'm providing with you all, you realize that it's not based in fear and that it's all about the expansion and evolution of consciousness, and we need to be neutral in the process, and we can't just disregard it all because it does impact us in some way, shape, or form. So this will be World War III Decoded, but also I have a lot of information to share with you all about another question that I've been getting often, which is about when will Bitcoin and this crypto market enter price discovery, or when can we anticipate the next all-time high? And although this is stuff that I've covered very thoroughly in several podcasts leading up to this one, and I also go over it in great detail in my crypto decoding blueprint, this podcast today, I wanted to just round out some of the edges on the questions that I've been receiving, a lot of frequently asked questions, and well, I just want to bring you as much value as possible. So without any further ado, welcome to Red Pill 178. I hope you're all having an amazing weekend wherever you are. Make sure you get comfortable, get relaxed, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's the morning time, or a glass of wine or beer or any beverage of your choice. If it's a little bit later out there, I myself am sticking to some lemon water today. And if you're new here to the Wolfpack, welcome. So awesome to have you here with us. Just make sure if you want to get access to our Discord server that you send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username, and I will reply back to you in a Patreon direct message with your Discord server invite. If you're having trouble figuring out how to DM me, just go ahead into the comments section of this post here, the Red Pill Podcast, scroll down a little bit, and then you'll see I commented in a pinned comment below this podcast. Just click on my profile picture. And once you do that, you'll be sent to another page where you'll have access to send me a message. That's all you have to do. Please don't email me, and please don't comment below with your Discord information. I won't be able to help you out that way. Please follow those instructions. Also, we're doing great with the altcoin voting system. Again, last week we did have the What I'm Investing in special, so I dedicated that to all of my investments, mostly my venture capital bag, going over my portfolio and everything, all those juicy details that you all want to know. So if you haven't watched that, definitely go check that out. It was part 6 in the ongoing series, What I'm Investing in Special. And as we progress through this bull run, especially when we enter price discovery for Bitcoin in the altcoin market, we'll be getting a little bit more into the details of my exit strategy. But for now, we are in accumulation mode, clearly, for a lot of these speculative altcoins. And for those of you that are newer to investing, newer to crypto, or just newer to maybe my art, you can go ahead and watch that, and I think it'll be very informative. Again, that's not financial advice. I am not your financial advisor. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just being vulnerable and sharing exactly what I'm doing with you all, because I believe that helps in some way for anyone, no matter where you're at in your investment thesis or in your wealth plan. So today we will be covering about 5 different altcoins. I'm planning to get around to AMP, which is also one of my venture capital investments. I just could not cover that last week. Then we have Curve, DAO, EOS, which I haven't talked about in a long time. Then we have ICP, Internet Computer Protocol, and then we'll be wrapping up today's podcast with TA on reserve rights. Now, let's get into the podcast, shall we? So we're coming to the end of this Mercury retrograde phase in a couple days. It'll be effectively finishing off on the 27th or 28th. So we have Mercury stationing direct right there into that 28th date in the sign of Leo. Over here, you might have it seen as the 27th, but it's those 2 days in a window, of course. And speaking of Leo, the sun is also now passing through Leo in the sign, in sidereal astrology. I just wanted to show you that really quickly so you can see what I'm talking about. So we have right over here August 17th through the 16th of September. So we'll have the sun is in Leo and sidereal. That's what's actually going on in the sky. And it'll be in Leo until the middle of September, which is really important because that'll be around the time of the next Fed meeting, next Fed FOMC meeting. Now, Leo, the lion, ruled by the sun, which is one of the key energy portals of this matrix, the other being the black sun, the soul below. So between now and until the end of Virgo, we should see expansion in the markets, and that follows into Libra, the scales, symbolic of balance, also symbolic of imbalance because it's either one or the other, right? The same thing goes when you're getting into astrology and some people talk about a Jupiter placement and they say that's lucky. Well, just be aware that in order for you to be lucky, someone else has to be unlucky, right? So everything is working in that polarity, and that's what I hope you guys pick up on as decoders, right? It's not just all one way. It needs the other to have the other. You need darkness and the desire for light. When you have too much light, you would desire darkness, and it's all working in that yin yang. So anyways, getting back to this, we have this upcoming solar eclipse, which will be through this time frame of sidereal Virgo, the Virgin. So keep this stuff in mind. So we have Libra, scales, talking about balance, and then we have the upcoming solar eclipse on October 2nd. And if you're utilizing sidereal, the solar eclipse will be in Virgo, the Virgin, that's Isis. Isis is the symbol of all physical life in the simulacrum, which aligns perfectly with Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year, or the harvest phase. So we have through the 17th of September through the 17th of October, and sidereal will be in Virgo. And we have the upcoming solar eclipse, which we talk about quite often here, and we'll be talking about a lot today. We have that on October 2nd. So that shares the same date as the solar eclipse and Rosh Hashanah. Again, we'll continue to track our progress through this cycle month by month, but it's key to keep this upcoming Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year, on your radar for a noticeable shift in energy, specifically for the crypto market. So please pay attention to what I just said. Now, the reason is this will be our fourth solar eclipse of the solar cycle. And Bitcoin has a relationship with these cycles, as I've shared many, many times, especially with the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle and before the lunar cycle starts, which would be on March 13th of 2025. Again, this is all covered thoroughly in my crypto decoding blueprint, which is also available in my decoding mastermind course at WatersAbove.com. So if you want like a jam-packed, complete, comprehensive decoding course, that decoding mastermind covers it all. And then it also includes that crypto decoding blueprint for free within it. So one thing to also mention is that we have two upcoming lunar eclipses. All right. We don't talk about this too often here, but we do have that happening. September 17th and 18th, a partial lunar eclipse. And then that follows the following month on October 17th with a almost lunar eclipse. But just this pair of eclipses is something I want to talk about. So we have this back-to-back month after month lunar eclipse pattern, or we could just call it a pair of lunar eclipses, actually happened in the recent years of 2020, 2016, and 2013. And what do all of those 3 years have in common? Well, they're the years leading up to the top of the crypto bull run. Or in the case of 2013, which was like the first big cycle for Bitcoin, it was the best year for Bitcoin's performance during that bull run. It also was the market top. So just keeping that pair of eclipses in mind, I think it's fascinating stuff. And as you're all aware, the end of the 2013, let me quickly go over here. Apologies, this is taking a little bit of time to load. Hopefully we're not going to come into any of those issues today. All right, so the end of the 2013 cycle was a peak. At the end of the 2017 cycle was a peak. At the end of 2021 cycle, technically you had your peak, meaning it would make sense, and I say this loosely, that the quote end of 2025 would be the next cycle peak, unquote. Again, based on this pattern, which is only 3 cycles and only a little over a decade of chart history for one single asset, Bitcoin. So this is not a prediction. It's just revealing what Bitcoin has clearly done over and over again over these past 3 cycles. And what we're doing here specifically is decoding the why. Why is Bitcoin topping out during these years? Why does Bitcoin have its bull runs and bear markets during these specific years? And that's what we're figuring out here. So far, utilizing the solar and lunar cycles, we have a much clearer answer to those questions. We have the why. And those past 3 cycles all had their biggest moves and what we call an alt season after the 4th solar eclipse of the solar cycle, and before the start of a lunar cycle. That's really key to mention. So this gives us a window of October 2nd, which is right around the corner, up until March 13th, 2025 as the time frame for a very bullish phase in the crypto market. Now let's quickly revisit the concept of the pair of eclipses we have coming up. I know I just brought that up a couple minutes ago regarding September 17th and October 17th. And what I've seen personally from analyzing the past charts is that we tend to be flat through this pair of eclipses. And after the second lunar eclipse in that pair is when Bitcoin really starts to lift off. And that eclipse for this cycle would be October 17th, or we could just call it the October full moon. And so this points to something to keep in mind, which is if Bitcoin and this seasonality chart that we've been talking about lately, if this was to play out like it does in September, where we could have a flat or slightly in the red Bitcoin price for September, then October is likely to be explosive. And looking at how Bitcoin trades post the pair of lunar eclipses in 2013, 2017, and 2020, well, there is a clear pattern to consider. And then also simultaneously aligning that with the 4th solar eclipse of our solar cycle and before our lunar cycle. So you can see we're really timing things here. This is really valuable information that we're getting into right now. So we have Bitcoin seasonality pointing to October, November, December being bullish, naturally. This is pretty much the case. Whenever we have our bull runs, we tend to see Bitcoin does really well in November, December. Whenever we have our bear markets, we see it does very poorly in November, December. And we're not in a bear market. Bitcoin has been trading for the past almost 6 months now in new all-time highs regarding the macro. If we were to look at monthly candles or 2-month or 3-month candles, for instance, we are trading much more above what we were doing in 2021. Now, I know that's kind of not what we're all feeling, because Bitcoin has been trading in this pocket of 60 to 70K for 6 months now. And there's this huge narrative around Bitcoin ETFs and BlackRock and this, that, and the third. But really what's the most powerful information here is the way that Bitcoin trades with its relationship to the lunar and solar cycles. So this is really good that Bitcoin has been sideways and boring lately. It's much better than just having this really explosive move like the one that happened in 2020, which was not so good to have, especially because that move in 2020, it came to a screeching halt in the month of May. And then when that happened in May, we saw lots of problems. So we see right over here, and I'm sorry this is taking so much time to load. It's a really bad timing for there to be issues with my charts, but we'll give it a second and hopefully it recalibrates. Well, the internet overlords intervened, but we're not going to let that get in the way. Let's just continue where we left off. So a couple interesting things to bring up and keep in mind is that in the past 2 cycles of 2021 and 2017, Bitcoin topped about 118 to 120 days after the fourth solar eclipse of the solar cycle, respectively. Now, that's just 2 cycles, of course, but the proximity is insanely close to each other, just about 48 hours difference. I mean, that's pretty wild. So if we take this data and apply it to our upcoming fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle, you end up with January 28th through 30th. So I'm just going to type in the upcoming solar eclipse on October 2nd, and we're going to push this out to late January timeframe, and you'll see where we align. So we have this January 28th date, about 118 days after the fourth solar eclipse, and then you go up to 120 days and you have January 30th. And if you wanted to include the end date, it would just bring you to the 29th. I mean, we don't got to get so specific here. Let's just say the end of 2020 or the end of January 2025 to keep it simple. Now, what's crazy about this is that the first new moon of 2025 is January 29th. So it's pretty much smack dab in the middle of those dates that I just mentioned. And if we include the end date, we have this January 29th date exactly 120 days from the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle. And why does the fact that it's a new moon matter? Well, if we go back to pretty much every single cycle peak for Bitcoin, you're going to see the relationship between the new moon and Bitcoin's all-time highs. So you have over here, every single blue dot is your new moons, followed by the white dots are your full moons. And you'll see that we topped on all of these new moons, and we even got the I would say the entire crypto market cycle top in April, right there on a new moon. And if we go back to the peak of 2017, you could see right there on a new moon. If you go to the peak before that one, you're going to see the same situation right here, December 2013. We got that peak on the new moon. So this is really important to bring up. And then also you have the awareness that we tend to get that cycle peak in the end of the year. And then we've had some that show up in the Q1 timeframe. But we'll get to that another time. The point here is that the fact that if we measured from this date of October 2nd, the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle, and then we bring it over about 118 to 120 days, that's bringing you into January 29th, and that's a new moon. And why is this specific new moon so special? Well, it's just not any new moon. It's Chinese New Year, so it will be the year of the snake. So this is solid data to have in advance because we're combining several elements that you'd likely never hear about anywhere else. But yeah, without a doubt, they've proven to be timed and tested and true with these major moves in the Bitcoin chart. Just like we literally had our bear market bottom on the lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle of 2022. Let me just reset the chart and show you that. So you can see right here where it says bottom, that was right there on the last lunar eclipse of our lunar cycle. And you also see that after the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycles and before the lunar cycle starts, that's where we're getting a lot of these all-time high cycle peaks. I mean, all of the cycle peaks actually for the crypto market specifically. And to let you know, where we're measuring these lunar and solar cycles has everything to do with the birth of the asset. So you can't necessarily just synchronize this with like the Tesla chart. You would have to take it from the birth of Tesla and kind of equate it to what's going on with the astrology at that time. So what we're talking about right now is very specific to crypto. I want to clear the air on that. So one thing to mention, because of what I just brought up a moment ago about the synchronicity of the way that Bitcoin behaves after the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle and before the start of our lunar cycle, I'll just speak for myself. I am not messing around with that upcoming March lunar eclipse, especially with March being a key month for Black Swan events, such as the one in our recent history in March 2020. The C-19 pandemic that shut down the whole world. And remember, I already told you guys years in advance that the year of the snake is a problem specifically for the USA. because the USA always goes to war during the year of the snake. And I'll read it through to you. I don't want to go through too many tabs right now because my internet connection is awful, but you could all backtest this on your own. Don't just blindly follow what I'm saying or take what I'm saying without doing your own research. But let me just go through it real quick. We have 1917, USA entered into World War I. That was the year of the snake. We have 1941, USA entered World War II. Well, that would be the year of the snake, happened in December. The USA invaded Afghanistan in 2001 after the 9/11 ritual, similar to how things went down in 1941, where it was right after the Pearl Harbor ritual, right? There needs to be a reason they give you all. But what's actually happening is it's all coming down to this Chinese zodiac synchronism. So coincidentally, this invasion of Afghanistan was on October 7th, the same date that Israel declares war last year, right after the end of the Jubilee. Then you have another really important one to bring up, which is 1965. The USA goes into Vietnam, year of the snake. And this happened in March, with their military presence peaking in April during the year of the snake. Also, when the USA entered World War I was in April, so pay attention to the pattern here. The American Revolutionary War was in April. That was in 1775, and 86 years later, you then have the American Civil War. Guess what month? April. You seeing a pattern here? The Bay of Pigs invasion, April, which was part of the Cold War, and that started on March 12th. In March, we have March 11th, 1861. Confederate delegates approve the Constitution of the Confederate States of America, which leads to the Civil War a month later in April. Again on March 11th, the same date as C-19 was declared by the WHO. You have the USA entering Vietnam on March 8th. So March and April during the year of the snake are no joke. Clearly, I'm giving you this far in advance. And when the smell of war is in the air, it seems that the US military likes to get spicy in March and April, regardless of the Chinese year we're in. That's just a fact. But if it's the year of the snake, we don't go through one without there being some serious military involvement, some Aries energy. Now, we all know the event that triggered the US to get involved in World War II. That was Pearl Harbor, that inside job. That was on December 7th, 1941, which aligns with our main code of the year because I'm going to pull this up real quick. We have December 7th is the day leaving 24 days left in the year of the 24 year. That's our key number for this year that we've been following along, of course. Then the following day of December 8th is really powerful because this is when the USA declared war immediately after Pearl Harbor. And we're comparing it to back in 1941, year of the snake. And this is the 83 years in between, 83rd anniversary. So this is incredibly powerful because December 8th, day leaving 23 days left in the year, 83 years apart. 83 is the 23rd prime number. So we have it sync together really nicely. And the number 23 is very powerful because it's the 9th prime number. And the number 9 being the number of spatial infinity. It's the final number in the cycle before the reset of the number sequence. Of course, when you go to 10, it becomes 1 again, right? In the rules of numerology, you all know this. But the fact that this is the day leaving 23 days left in the year, and it's the 83rd anniversary of this event, and you can clearly see this realm we're in is on a very close to the moment of World War III essence. I don't think anyone could deny that. Well, the fact that this is syncing together, I think, is extremely powerful. So we have 83, we have that being the 23rd prime. And here we have a very important synchronicity, even more to add to this special date because we have it being the 343rd day of the year. So 343 is 7 times 7 times 7. That's the jackpot. And to dial this decode in even more, we have it being a 64 and 19 date numerology for this specific date of December 8th this year. And I'm about to show you how important this date numerology has been for this particular year, because we have the Trump assassination attempt on the 13th of July, 2024. You'll see it's a 64 and 19 date numerology, just like this date, December 8th, that we're decoding. Also, Donald Trump's birthday this year was on the 14th of June. That's a 64 and 19 date numerology. So his birthday date numerology was the same date numerology that his assassination attempt was. Not just single or standard date numerology, double digit date numerology as well, which is even more powerful actually. So also, remember when I was mentioning the December 8th date of this year being 23 days left in the year and the 83rd anniversary since the US entered into World War II after the Pearl Harbor ritual. 83 is the 23rd prime, making 23 the key number here. Well, this upcoming September 11th is going to be a 64 and 19 date numerology. You really can't make this up. And you want to know why this is so powerful? Because September 11th was 23 years ago. So we have this key number of 23, keep bringing it up. On the 23rd anniversary of September 11th, you're going to have the same date numerology as all those dates that I just brought up. Can't make this up. And remember, 9/11 is actually 7/11 or 11/7 written internationally, because September starts with the prefix septem, which is 7 in Latin. And this is where we have the 117 code. And if you go to Gematria, you'll see that World War III is giving you the 117 code. And coming back to the 64 again, remember, Trump's birthday is the 64. The date of his assassination attempt is a 64. 9/11 is a 64. The date that we're decoding tied to World War II in December is a 64. Coming back to this number 64, it's even coded into Kamala Harris because she was born in 1964. Also a year of the dragon, the Chinese year that we're in now. And 1964 is very, very important because it was a wood dragon. And we're in the wood dragon year this time around too. So there's even more synchronism. She's also 59 years old, which it does code in. We have dragon giving you 59. She's born in a dragon year. She's now making it to the final stage of this ritual, this election ritual. I should call it the selection ritual. So she's 59 years old, dragon 59 in Gematria. And it's also been 59 years since the USA entered Vietnam, which I just showed you before is synchronized with the year of the snake. And she'll be 60 right before this election, and this upcoming March of 2025, which is the start of our lunar cycle that's really important to know about as investors. That'll be the 60th anniversary since the USA entered Vietnam. So not looking so good. And clearly this selection is a huge distraction, like all of them, because there's a big change going on behind the scenes in the money and the debt. And that's what war is always for. And of course, there's casualties and there's a blood ritual sacrifice as the exoteric side of it. But the esoteric side of it is the money. It's all about debt. It's all about currency. That's why they call it debt, because it's death. Right? So it's really unfortunate, as I shared at the very beginning of this podcast, to preface what we were about to get into. We're dialing it in right now, and it's pretty obvious to me that next year, when we move into the year of the dragon, into the year of the snake, is going to have more involvement with the US. And we have all these 64-19 connections that I keep bringing up. I think this is pretty big. Now, one other thing to add to this decode for World War III, coming back to December 8th, that key date that we were talking about. Get that in the calculator. So we have December 8th and how this is the time frame of we're going to be in the new Hebrew year of 5,785. So we have 5785 reducing to 25. And then we're heading into the Gregorian year of 2025, just a couple of days leading into it. And this key number 25 is important for next year, the year of the snake. We have this number 25, or the mirror of 25, being 52. And if we tie this into the upcoming Chinese New Year, which is the 29th, you can see they're 52 days apart. So we'll be in the Hebrew year right in this time frame that already reduces to 25. The mirror of that 25 becomes 52. We're 52 days before the Chinese year. We're synchronizing everything here. So I think this is very important. It seems that December 6th through 8th is going to be very powerful. So I'll be sharing my thoughts on that in a moment, but I have a little bit more code to share with you about the 52 and the 25, because now we could dial this in for crypto specifically, because we have December 6th being the 25 days left in the year. And crypto gives us 25 in gematria. It also equals 97, and 97 is the 25th prime number, just like we have serpent equals 97 in gematria. So this is powerful, the way that we're synchronizing this all together. Again, serpent is the snake. We're moving into the year of the snake. 97 is the 25th prime number. And this 25, esoterically, it becomes 2 5s, which is 55. We're talking about the month of December being 55 in gematria. Like we have Satoshi Nakamoto. And I'm just going to copy this real quick to save time. We have the 55s in multiple ciphers. So 55 is a huge number here for crypto. 25, 55, and 52, the mirror of 25. And we have December 6th that I just brought up being 25 days left in the year, when we're in the time frame of it being the Hebrew year that reduces to 25. Now, this is powerful, okay? You have to keep this in mind, because if we take December 5th and we're tying it to this upcoming year of the snake on Chinese New Year, we're 55 days apart. So we have lots of synchronism between it all. One of the things to bring up is the relationship between the 4th solar eclipse and December 6th, and you could see they are 2 months and 5 days apart. How many 52, 25, and 55 connections have I just shown you? Using just the span of a small amount of dates and connecting it back to all these significant time frames, because they're the new years. The new year of looking at from the Gregorian perspective, with 25 days left till the Gregorian New Year, tying it to Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year, and tying it to the Chinese New Year. So I'm not just picking out random dates out of nowhere. I'm synchronizing it all with this key code for all of these years respectively. So just please keep this stuff in mind, because it seems that this is a very critical energy time frame for the markets. And I believe that between December 6th and January 29th, that would make a lot of sense for there to be a massive surge in the Bitcoin price, because of the timing of all this. Also, you know that in the kind of middle to end third week or so of December, you have Saturnalia timed to Saturn tied to Satoshi. And it's very powerful for Satoshi this year, because this mythological character is 49 years old. But getting back to this decode, this date of December 6th also connects to the start of our upcoming lunar cycle, which is going to be on the 13th of March. And this synchronizes by 97 days. And 97 is, again, your 25th prime number. Like serpent equals 97. We were just talking about it earlier. Massive. All of the key dates are tied to this. It's clear to me that this December 6th through December 8th timeframe is very powerful. This info is absolutely gold, right? So we have one other last real thing to mention, is that when we're talking about December, we're talking about a month with a black moon this year. So what a black moon is we have 2 new moons in a single month, as you can see here. You have your new moon column, you have December 1st and December 30th, 2 new moons in the same month, not like a blue moon, which would be 2 full moons in the same month. And again, full moons tend to be more bearish, whilst new moons are bullish, especially if they're not a eclipse. Given that, we're looking at a couple other factors, but just keep that in mind. To this day, Bitcoin has never hit a major top on a eclipse. It's always had a major bottom on eclipses, though. So that's also synchronized with a lunar cycle. This is very much why I don't think the crypto market will be bullish in the month of March. I think it'll already, and I'm talking about 2025, of course, I think it will be on a downtrend, or at least the very start of a noticeable blow off top or something along those lines. So anyways, just keep that in mind. So with all this code synchronizing and the fact that we typically see a very bullish December for Bitcoin, and really it's October, November, December, we'll call it Q4. Should just say a very bullish Q4 for Bitcoin, along with the stock market historically having a pretty awesome December. Whether you look at it from the perspective of an election year or not. It's a big reason I'm not shaken out by the potential rate cut situation next month in September that the Fed is flexing and that a lot of traditional analysts are getting concerned about. So even if the traditional markets stalled out leading into the next FOMC meeting, it wouldn't be shocking here because I've shown you the pattern for the Year of the Dragon so many months before the year 2024 even kicked off. We see that it's a typical pattern for the traditional markets to top out in the short term. Let me show you. It's very typical for them to top out in the short term in the month of September, followed by a pullback into the election time frame. And then we could get a micro bull trap into Super Tuesday, followed by a slightly deeper pullback about 8 to 10 days after the election. And that ends up being a pivot point leading into a bullish recovery to finish off the year. So let me try to draw this out for you to give you an idea. There's a couple of technical things that I could share. I'm not entirely sure if we can make it all the way up to this 1618, the golden ratio, by this time frame, but anything's possible in the matrix. But it would make sense if we were to do this. It would be before the FOMC, perhaps pull back into FOMC, little bit of a bull trap kind of idea into the election, and then maybe right here until the 14th or so, then we pop back up and things get very bullish after that. So it would just look like a support line. You see? 1 touch point, 2 touch points, 3 touch points, something along those lines. That would make a lot of sense to me. I do not feel in my analysis right now that the FOMC will be able to break these lows below 5,000 points on the S&P. If they were to, that would probably be a little bit precarious. Anything's possible in the matrix, but if we were to break below that, could look very awkward, especially if in the short term we can make it all the way up to this 1618 to around 5,880 points, because that would just look very overextended and blow off top but we've seen many multi-month corrections stalling out and then pivoting in the month of November. It's even happened last year pretty noticeably, and then we went all the way up into March. So yeah, I think that right now I'm not really super concerned about what the Fed is up to. I do feel that they don't want to crash the markets before the elections because they're already getting people so, distracted by just the election theater. And then all the other things that are going on in the world stage, including war. And so many people are assuming that we were going to pop out into World War III right in this year. But it's been known, in my art at least, that there needs to be this draw out period. And it's a very ritualistic entrance that the USA makes. Always. Look at how 9/11 went. Look at Pearl Harbor. I mean, there's plenty of other situations as well, but then we would have to get into a history lesson, and there's no need to do that. So you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Keep that visual I just shared in mind. I would not be shocked if leading into the next FOMC meeting, we see more expansion in the traditional markets. It would not shock me. And I think that would synchronize beautifully with Bitcoin entering its first stages of price discovery. But remember what I shared a little bit earlier about this relationship of the two or the pair of lunar eclipses. We have the lunar eclipse of September 17th and the lunar eclipse of October 17th. I hope I mentioned this earlier because, my internet cut out and I had a couple hours where I was down and I had to come back in. But anyways, well, not a couple hours, but it was a long enough amount of time to where, things can get lost in translation. But effectively, we see that after the second lunar eclipse in this pair of eclipses, that's where things really start taking off, which means that by the end of October, leading through November, December, it should be awesome for crypto. Now, that's no different than what happened last year. That's very similar, actually, to what happened in 2020, leading into the final leg up of 2021. It's what happened in 2016, leading into 2017. I mean, also what happened in 2013 to finish off the bull run. So yeah, there's this relationship between this pair of lunar eclipses in the midst of a solar cycle. Around this fourth solar eclipse, it's even more powerful. So I have a hard time believing that we're just going to crash and keep going down lower right now. I think we're pretty clear skies ahead, although we have to see what happens between now and the FOMC. They could absolutely ritualize us for that, or for October 2nd for the solar eclipse timeframe. But I'm still more bullish than I am bearish between now and March of 2025. So we got that out of the way. Last notes on the market regarding the traditional markets. We could even see the traditional markets push up to new all-time highs soon. I believe I brought that up a moment ago. A top could be formed, pull back into November 11th through 15th, and that's the November full moon post-election. And then that black moon in December sets the rockets off. That's where the party really gets exciting. But yeah, when it's exciting, it's also when you should be weary of what's coming next, right? Because when everyone's greedy, you should get fearful. So let's recap the 3 key dates that we have, going back to our last decode I shared with you guys last week, and I brought this up probably the week before. We have, let me make sure I got the dates right. We have the August 30th date, which is coming up this Friday. That is 82 days before Joe Biden's 82nd birthday, and it lands on an 82 date numerology. Mind-blowing connection, specifically to Biden, or just this election cycle in general. So keep that in mind. I would not be shocked if there is an actual event on this specific day, just because of the syncretism. Also, if I include the end date, I know it kind of messes up the 82, but we have it being 2 months and 22 days apart, and that's a very powerful code, the 222 code. Remember, between 9/11 and C19, that was exactly 222 months. Also, C19 lasted 2 months and 2 years. The same thing with Spanish flu. This number 22 and 222, super common. Remember, the 49ers just lost their second Super Bowl to the same team, and they lost with 22 points, and it was the second Super Bowl to ever go into overtime. Like, cannot make this crap. Oh, and also the game that they played against the Chiefs the first time around was in 2020, 2-2. You remove the zeros. And it was on February 2nd. Or was it February 20th? I don't know. But I remember it being like the 2-2-2-2-2. So yeah, there's a lot of twos in there. And that's a code of like a great reset. You have your normal reset code, which is the 1-1. Like Genesis starts 1:1. Yeah, anyways. Don't want to go off in too many other directions. We have August 30th, 82 days before Joe Biden's 82nd birthday, lands on an 82 date numerology. I know you guys like when I go off into the tangents with nuggets of info, but let's get back on track. So, of course, we have the upcoming October 2nd solar eclipse, very powerful because it is also Rosh Hashanah. So you have October 2nd through October 4th. And then we have this new date that I've discovered, which is December 6th through 8th. The 6th specifically for crypto, and then we have the 7th Pearl Harbor ritual, and then the 8th being the day that is tied to war. Sorry, I had it on November. Yeah, then we have the 8th being the day that's tied to the war. And then we had all the syncretism between the 64 date numerology with Trump's birthday this year, also the Trump assassination attempt, 9/11 anniversary, 9/11 23rd anniversary this year. And then we also have this day being 23 days left in the year. I could keep going. Crazy powerful date. And the last thing to share about the 23 when we get back to the crypto side of things is we have Bitcoin equals 23 in Chaldean. Also, December 8th is tied to Hebrew New Year. Let me show you that real quick. 2 months and 5 days apart. So yeah, I mean, unbelievable amount of connections. And if we were to connect it to the first full day of the Hebrew year, the first full day, it would be 2 months and 3 days apart from the 23 days left in the year. It's crazy, just crazy. All this synchronizing with the 49th week of the year, by the way. Let me just show you. We have the 49th week, December 2nd through December 8th. And I talked about the 49ers just a little bit ago. So we have this huge ritual playing out on the world stage, including sports. We had the 49ers lost the Super Bowl for the second time against the same team like they did back in 2020 against the Chiefs. And at the end of 2020, that was incredibly bullish for the crypto market. And here we are decoding the end of 2024, which I'm expecting to be the same energy for the crypto market this time around, unless there's an absolutely wild curveball thrown. So also, especially, we brought up the 49 before, 49th week of this year. We have it being Satoshi Nakamoto's 49th year of age until April 5th, 2025. And also, March would be your true first month in the cycle. April would be your true second month in the cycle. So April 5th is 2/5 in the 2/5 year, right? So that's another thing I have to talk about in my when I get around to finalizing my year of the snake Decoded, which, by the way, I have a sneak preview of. It's like at least 30 minutes long in my crypto decoding blueprint. It's included with that. So yeah, this April Satoshi birthday is powerful because it's after the start of our lunar cycle, and that will be during Satoshi's 50th year, and that's the Jubilee number. So although Jubilee is positive in many ways, it comes with its own set of volatile, temperamental shakeouts. So this gives us a really dialed in time frame before heading into next year, and we're already kind of deciphering it far in advance. I mean, over a half a year in advance, I believe, at this point. So we've identified that the very end of 2025, around Chinese New Year, somewhere around January 29th into the start of February, right there in the year of the snake, that should be a very bullish time frame for the crypto market. And I wouldn't even be surprised if we pushed up into February, especially if we're talking altcoins. We had in 2021, the start of the lunar cycle was in May with this eclipse right here. And the month naturally before is April. So if we have our lunar cycle starting in March, month before would be February. I mean, it's not too scientific, but it does kind of give us a couple of months to keep in mind. So it would be December through February is really, really, really the time frame. And it would be strange if we were peaking higher in March and April, especially after that eclipse. So the time around it would be the lunar cycle starting in March. Within the month prior, you have February. Lots to keep in mind, but we're sharing it all plenty of time in advance so that kind of like build enough of a story and narrative for you all that we could dial it in even further. And of course, I said earlier when we were decoding this World War III thing that we have these precarious months of April and March of the year of the snake. It's a pattern that we have for March and April for the year of the snake, which is coming up very soon. And that has everything to do with this current war narrative. So that's it, family. We have World War III decoded. It seems that March, April of 2025 would be big involvement from the US, but don't be surprised if at the tail end of this year in December, we get something that happens, kind of like launches us into the essence of it. Could even be another Pearl Harbor like event, but I'll have to kind of dive deeper into that maybe in another video. So I even covered this election along with the war and the next cycle peak. I mean, this could be one of the most valuable Red Pill podcasts I've ever made, and I don't say that lightly. It's unfortunate the internet kind of disrupted us in between, but it's okay. It is what it is. But let me know some of your thoughts in the Discord if you have any decodes for this current war narrative or key dates tied to it. It'd be interesting to see what you've uncovered as well. Now let's get into the charts. We have had a pretty nice move up for Bitcoin, and it's funny that we've been decoding this number 64 pretty much the entire podcast, and then here we have it, Bitcoin trading at 64k. Really incredible buyback that we had into the Friday market close. It's good that Bitcoin is chilled out here around 64k because we have the CME opening up a little bit later, and Bitcoin has been filling those gaps, so we can't deny that that's played a big role. We also have this trend line that has once been a resistance. It's this falling trend line that has been back tested now a couple times on the outside, and then it correlates nicely with this 1618 having a bearish fib pull. So that would be from the initial swing high to the swing low to swing high pulled in reverse, and this gives you your 1618 or the golden ratio at the bottom as opposed to the traditional fib pull at the top. And since we've bounced nicely, we've filled all the key gaps that we've had, these pretty big gaps, and now we're just sort of trading in the middle of the range. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we're very close to the 0.5 fib. Wow, there you have it. We've made it up to the bottom of the golden pocket. So it's fine for me to delete that fib that I had pulled before unless we started to break lower soon. I mean, if we started to close a daily below 51 or something on the CME chart. But for now, we've gravitated back up to this golden pocket, which is great to see. Really what we want to see, though, is the break of the July highs. So that would be a closure for Bitcoin at the same levels that I've been talking about. Just if it's 69 on the CME chart or 70, it's really just 71,500. Nothing changes, but really incredible bounce nonetheless. Now let's recap some of the analysis that I shared, that I've been sharing, which is that during Mercury retrograde, we're effectively pretty flat. And if you go to the couple days, before Mercury retrograde to where we're at now, we're flat. So we've pretty much completed the move. We have a couple days until Mercury stations direct. And then the second key point that I made about this month of August is going back to Bitcoin's seasonality chart, which shows that August is the only flat month that Bitcoin has. I mean, we're looking at 13 years of data and it's minus 0.2%. So just say it's flat. All right. Well, the month of August, it opened, as you can see, if I hover my chart over here and you look at after it says O, it'll say 64,700. Well, we're at 64,700 highs today, and we only have like 5-6 more days left in the month. So we are doing exactly what we always do. It's really nice to see. So those two key points that I brought up about Mercury retrograde and also, of course, the August new moon flash crash completed. Now we're flat again. We're heading into the monthly close flat so far. We have the new moon right around the corner, just about a week out from today. I believe it'll be like September 2nd. Yeah, September 2nd. So we're just like a week out from the new moon. Literally, it's next Monday. That's exactly how it should go. So the one thing I also mentioned in my analysis is that if we were to push up really like hard into the monthly close, like let's just say we were to get past this Mercury retrograde phase and then just pop up higher, that would be really more aligned, I think, with the traditional markets. And we did get this effect on the last Mercury retrograde that once it was over, we sank into the following full moon. We have this Mercury retrograde over here where we went up a little bit higher, but then we had this fake out. This again was tied to the Bitcoin ETF approvals. Over here, we just started to move up pretty nicely after Mercury retrograde, but again, it was synchronized with the solar eclipse, which we also have coming up. Here we were pretty down after two, so it's a mixed bag. You know, over here we had one of those Mercury retrogrades that we just pumped hard throughout the whole time frame. That's how I think the next Mercury retrograde is going to go, by the way, the one that's in November to December. That's just a side note. But yeah, I would not be shocked if we were a little bit flat still through the upcoming month, you know? It just seems that we would either need the market to continue expanding or we need some sort of trigger event. And right now, there is really no event. There's only been negative events, actually. And that's what's crazy to watch Bitcoin hold on and be at 64K still. And now we're all the way here in August, and we've been holding this range pretty nicely. Even though we have had 3 deep drives to the downside, we're pretty much back into the middle of the range, even slightly higher. So when we're dialing this in, we know that I mentioned the 4th solar eclipse of the solar cycle and how we tend to peak after that 4th solar eclipse and before the first lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle or the start of the lunar cycle. But then we also have that October 17th moment where it's synchronized with the full moon, which is that pair of eclipses that I brought up. This pair between the 17th and the 17th of September and October. So really interesting to see how this could align with the upcoming September, where we have 13 years of data of September being in the red. Not much, but in the red. And it's funny because if you take all the months of data and you see how when we're bullish versus the times we're bearish, this is kind of void and it's only 5%. So pretty crazy. It really shows that Bitcoin is literally the best performing asset of all time. And I don't say that because I'm like a Bitcoin maxi or so. It's just look at the data. It's fucking amazing. How did last September go? We were pretty flat too, right? Yeah, last September we were actually bullish. Yeah, technically. I'm sure from open to close, we were bullish. Yeah, incredible. So yeah, I'm sure this data now is even a little bit more in the positive. It's probably like -4% or -3.5 or something like that. So this upcoming September is unusual and very difficult to decode. And the reason why is because we don't have Rosh Hashanah in this upcoming September. Not usual. We usually do. This time around, it's in October. And another thing is it's a freaking lunar eclipse or solar eclipse. So yeah, real important stuff. And going back to the last September that aligns with this stage of the cycle, you see what happened. We did get a little bit of a dump, and then right into the October timeframe and that final Mercury retrograde of the year, that's when things started getting real juicy for the Bitcoin chart. So it feels like we're in the final moments, guys, especially with the altcoin market taking a huge hit over the past couple weeks. Actually, probably the past 3 months. But with the fact that there's so much fear in the altcoin market right now, and it's really oversold. This is the same place we were in 2020 before we had that crazy alt season. And all it took to have that was Bitcoin price discovery. So the analysis stays the same. We need to get above 71,500. Let's look at the weekly. I believe we have a bi-weekly close coming up, so that's even better, the fact that Bitcoin's all the way up here. So this would look great if we could close above 64K on the weekly. Yeah, bi-weekly looks fucking phenomenal. So this is great. Yeah, this is a really nice bounce, getting above the highs of the July open. Let me see our moving averages. That's a little bit precarious, the fact that we're getting resistance on the 8 on the bi-weekly, but we're holding the 21 on the bi-weekly, so that's very good to see all of the EMAs in a bullish posture. And yes, we're just kind of coiling up right now. And the more something coils up, the more explosive it is on the breakout, as you're all aware. And now when we're looking at the weekly, we have everything is holding its bullish posture effectively. We don't have a full bearish cross just yet on the EMAs, but we see the 34 has been holding as a support now for the past couple months. And we're about to close above all these moving averages again, which hasn't been like the telltale sign that we're going to just explode to the upside, but it's been pretty important to keep in mind. We have this topside Bollinger Band at 71,500. So it's exactly the resistance level that I have. You could see in the red right there, it's a 71.5. And if you stare over here, it'll say $71,580. So like, yeah, just closing above the topside Bollinger Band on the weekly would be lead to some pretty incredible moves to the upside. We got to see how this is going. Let me turn off these Bollinger Bands and see where we're at with the, okay, this is very good. You guys know what this cross is. We're about to see a wolf cross with the 8 above the 55. That's good to see, especially the fact that we're back above both 200s. So we have Bitcoin back above the 200 exponential and simple, and we're about to have a wolf cross. And once we can get this 8 back above the 200s, I think that'll look very nice. So let me turn these off, and we're about to get a bullish cross on the EMAs too. So we're about to see the 13 cross above the 34. It's actually initiated yesterday. And then if we can get this 21, the orange moving average above the 34, we would be in bullish posture on the EMAs on the daily. Plus that's all coiling together at about 61.2, 61.3. This is great, especially all this resistance on the 55, and then we just blasted above it. So that's a sign that the resistance on the 55 is broken. Very nice to see. Getting this wolf cross of the 8 above the 55 would be awesome. I'm going to save some time on this ETH analysis because there's really not too much to share. And it doesn't look good. I'm gonna just admit to everyone, the fact that we've come up to the resistance and we're kind of like having some weirdness there is really not so great. So hopefully this turns into a spring and ETH can get back up above 3,000. But as long as it's below 3,000, especially in this 2,600 to 2,800 range, it's not looking promising. So this is pretty unfortunate correction that we've seen. Hard to compare it to other things because it was a deep one. It was probably 50%, right? Yeah, almost 50% mid-cycle correction for ETH. I mean, what was the C19 crash like? The C19 crash was 70%, but like if you were to look at it in the perspective of like where we found supports, you're looking at 65. So, I mean, that was considered one of the most devastating crashes in history. And it's like the recent one that we've had for ETH is not too far off. I mean, in crypto world, plus or minus 10 to 15% is nothing, right? So, yeah, the one thing that I brought up earlier, actually, in earlier podcasts is the fact that we actually had RSI go lower on the daily than it did around the C19 crash. Recently, we've had the RSI go lower. That's crazy. So oversold. But structurally, we want to see this pop back up soon. I suppose we need to get that 70K Bitcoin to start seeing ETH recover. And that's always the way ETH is. ETH is always lagging behind and following, riding the coattails of Bitcoin. Same thing with most assets. Quickly running over XRP, we're at the same place I talked about last week. We're now going on about 3 weeks in the 60-cent range. We've had the SEC case come to its finality, but we still have about until October, pretty much Rosh Hashanah. We have until the end of September next month for there to be a potential appeal, which I suspect is in the cards, but I'm not predicting it will happen. But not out of the woods just yet, right? So we need to see how that goes. And I do not believe that matters too much. I'm going to be honest with everyone. I still think the only thing that really matters for XRP is Bitcoin price discovery. I've said it thousands of times, right? So we see this moment right here when phase 5 was completed and a break of this structural resistance was when Bitcoin was breaking into new all-time highs in March, April of 2017. We need the same thing to happen now. So once Bitcoin could clear 71.5-ish, that's when you're going to see a move pretty nicely for XRP. As for XRP to the downside, it feels like we've had some pretty major shakeouts recently in the crypto market, and I don't really think there's too much more to go. It's like, how much more fear could there be? I don't really think there's much. I'm going to be honest. I know that's like kind of a guess or sounds like a guess, but in all of what I've calculated in regards to our lunar cycle, solar cycle, where we're at in our solar cycle versus past solar cycles, the relationship that we have to specifically the fourth solar eclipse, the relationship that we have to the lunar eclipse pair that's coming up that I already brought up, happened in 2013, 2017, and 2020. Nothing points to more devastating downside price action. Nothing. Okay. The only thing would be the exoteric FOMC meeting stuff coming up with potential rate cuts, but that's all going to be momentary anyways. They don't want to crash the markets. So we're moving on to AMP. It's a project that I actually hold. I did not cover it last week because I went over 20 something altcoins and you can't cover every single chart. We have a all-time or the best chart available. And we have a fib pulled from the swing high of June 2021 down to October 2023. Remember, This was the solar eclipse in our solar cycle, and this was the next solar eclipse of our solar cycle right here around April 8th. So the relationship between those two was pretty wild to see how we expanded so much in a lot of altcoins. And now here we are, we're approaching this next solar eclipse in a couple months. And we've had a pretty big mid-cycle correction from that last eclipse till this recent move in early August, which is the August new moon flash correction. And we're kind of holding the support in this 236, which is nice to see. And around the 236 is a healthy pullback after you have an automatic rally. So this was your selling climax, buying climax, automatic rally, because we got above the 382 fib and we headed into the 0.5 in a straight line, which is very like automatic rally vibes. Because here you're oversold, and then here you want to get overbought fast to kind of trap bulls. Then there's a deeper mid-cycle correction. I would assume this is like 80%. Jeez. And then you come down to structural level. You anticipate this 236 pullback. When things start going lower than that, back to a double bottom, that's not so nice. When things are going even lower, when you have something called a spring in Wyckoff, that's really, really like hurts, you know? So that's the purpose of buying the bear market, because when you buy the bear market, you're typically at the best part of the discount, but that doesn't mean that springs are impossible. They happen. Well, look at what happened in March 2020 for the entire crypto market. A lot of altcoins went much lower in the 2020 pullback than they did in Q4 of 2018. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting project for those who are interested in. I would just say there's a clear technical support here. I pull a line across the screen, you'll see what I mean. So we have this bounce, buying climax, return to this level a bunch of times, then we broke below it, come back to it, back test, then you had your AR, now we've back tested it again. So the 003 level is pretty important for AMP. Very important. That feels to me like we should be supported there, because we've only really traded below this region during the depths of the end of the bear market for crypto. And this is actually solid bounce so far. We just have to see if it could get back above the 382. Until it can get back above the 382, it's just still an accumulation. So from where we're at right now in this asset to all-time high is 2,600%. Now, I've had some people that have reached out to me and have been like, Waters, why do you assume that all coins will go back to their all-time highs? Well, first and foremost, how many analysts talk about price discovery, or they talk about things going to the 1618 or much higher into that kind of area, you know? And the fact that I'm even bringing up just the all-time high of the past cycle is based in evidence, meaning it's done it before. And I think that's at least conservative. Now, another thing that I teach is between the 786 and 888. That's another thing that I talk about. And look, with this project, getting just back to the 786 is 1,000% move. Getting back to the 888 is about 1,500%, and we have a lot of rejections there. So it has trading range in this area. It's a lot better than just assuming we'll break higher. So when I share an investment thesis on my speculative altcoins that make up my venture capital bag, and I start pointing to this region of above the 786 to 888 and even bring up just the prior all-time highs, at least that's based in reality. It's something that's happened before. It's not completely random and impossible. I mean, one of the worst performing popular assets of the last cycle, aka XRP, it came back to this region. So, I mean, it's very, very possible. And we're in crypto, guys, where all we need is a little bit of an injection of liquidity for a lot of this speculative dog shit to do very well. It's just the way that this market is. It's fairy dust. It's the casino. But I don't think it's outlandish to be bringing up that particular target or prior all-time highs as part of my investment thesis. I think it's way safer and a lot less dangerous than just always assuming we're going to break into new all-time highs, at least. Let's go over to Curve DAO and then try to get through these altcoins. All right, so it's been some time since I've covered this one, and Mamma Mia, has this broke lower. So we had a reverse fib pulled, and we got there. A nice bounce up, you see, we tapped there, we bounced, and then we came back to it, and we held it for a while, and then broke. So this energy really went opposite at this stage in June 2024. Crazy. How much has this given up? It's probably all of its value. Yeah. So one thing about this is it's in price discovery to the downside, it seems. So there's no floor. We have to kind of reevaluate what's going on here. We're in a new world. We're in a new world order. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the fact that this had this major trend line right here, which aligns with the 236 right now, and you could see it was holding and holding and holding for fucking ever, for 4 years. All right, this was holding as a support for 4 years, and then it broke. That's not good. It's been perpetually trading lower and lower and lower whilst Bitcoin has been in recovery, right? So that's what Bitcoin has done from November 2022 to today. This is November 2022 right here. It's down 60%, whilst Bitcoin is up almost 300%. This is a tough type of altcoin to be in. I hope whoever is looking at stuff like this is considering it venture capital. That's what I always teach. You want to have less than like 4% on plays like this. Clearly very, very poor performance in these charts. It's hard to time it. You know, you kind of want to play the alt season game on them. So whenever we've gotten to these areas that are very oversold, sure, you accumulate a little, but always accumulate stuff you're willing to lose, like stuff that you're okay with never seeing again, you know? And if you have a better chart to look at, then that should help. Sometimes people get a little bit too caught up in the white paper and the dev team and some new partnership that the project has, and we've seen time and time again, that's never how it works. It's always been opposite, actually. So with that being said, this is not the most promising chart. Price discovery to the downside, I believe, unless somebody has more chart data in the past, but I don't know if we've went lower than 24 cents. We clearly have 4 years of data right here showing that we've been holding the 40 cent range, and then recently we broke below it, which is not good to see at all, especially with the fact that Bitcoin has bounced now back to the same levels that it was in late February into March. And this thing in March is down, 60% from here. So again, comparing it to the November bottom or the recent move, not good. There's been 0 entries that could possibly be profitable in 4 years because of where it's trading today. So yeah, be careful with this stuff. I mean, this is not something I could give too much time to. We have EOS. This is an OG crypto, like a crypto that goes back pretty long time. So we have data over here going back to 2017. And would you look at that? Holy moly, this thing is draining. This is rough. Is that the C19? What the fuck is going on in this chart? Oh my God. I hope nobody owns this. Oh man. This is March 2020. Okay, the C19 crash. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is 70% down from the... Oh. Goodness gracious, mama me. This is the most awful thing I've ever seen. Okay. Oh man, I gotta get my bearings straight. Oh God. Oh God, would you look at that? Gorgeous. So I took from the support lows, which was your bear market selling climax, your everything crash, and then this moment right here, which was the clear breakdown into further, bear market. Yeah, you get it. But the reason why I specifically pulled it in all seriousness is because of this jump right back to this level and the rejection. So whenever I see a break that's very violent and then the recovery and then coming back to the same area that was a prior resistance or probably prior support and then it becomes a resistance, that's the best place to pull a fib. So I pulled the fib in reverse naturally because I'm trying to get that 1618 to the downside. And you see I pulled it cleanly from this level right here, which was exactly the bounce to the break to the recovery rejection. Okay, exactly at $1.88. And then I just pulled it to the all-time high. And you see where it came down to? This is your 1618 on the bottom. It went there. Like, holy shit. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. This is horrifying to look at though, because this was in 2018. So this is down 98% to today. I mean, guys, this is what the dot-com bubble was like, for real. And it's funny because when people talk about the timeline that it took for the market to bottom for the dot-com bubble, like it took about this long, right? Let's look at the Amazon chart just real quick. I don't want to take up too much of your time today. Where's our boy at? Where's Bezos at? All right, so if we see from right here, we're looking at about, really what I should be doing is doing this. Showing you the time frame it took to break out into a new cycle. It took 3,600 days, so almost 10 years, right? It took almost 10 years. So going back to this EOS example, we're at pretty rough. About almost 7 years now. And I mean, yeah, so by year 8, 9, maybe it recovers into something, but this is like the dot-com bubble kind of vibe where it was just not fun on these OG products that didn't really have much behind them, and they're not really part of the new vision, like things like Caspa, for instance, like that's getting a lot of attention right now. So that'll continue to bounce, have a little correction, bounce again, little correction, bounce, but it'll keep going more and more up. Maybe there's not as much opportunity there for ROI like you would have gotten it like a year or two ago, but you know what I mean? So yeah, this is really devastating, this type of pullback. I can't do analysis on this. This is absolute garbage. It's from the bottom of the C19 crash, it's down 70%, whilst Bitcoin from the same moment is up 1,000%. Okay? Like, no bueno. This is really, really, really bad. Okay? So yeah, be careful with stuff like this, guys. If you ever pull up a chart and it looks anything like that, don't touch it. We have ICP. All right, we're not breaking through to hell just yet. This has come back up on a bounce up to the 382. The one thing about this project that's really sketchy is it was trading behind the scenes, and then pretty much the second it went public, it just fucking cratered and lost all of its value. So it was like a clear dump on investors type situation. Now a lot of people have speculated on it. They're thinking that it has some sort of like Phoenix rising from the ashes event coming up. I don't necessarily believe such. The symbolism is really fascinating with the black sun kind of figure 8 Analema pattern. It's pretty cool. But the real black sun is Solana. Anyways, so the 382 not being able to break through is a pretty weak automatic rally. What we're experiencing right now is also not the most convincing move because we haven't been able to hold the 236, although it's very difficult to get the exact fibs here because all this data limited onto the left side. So I'll just work with candlesticks right now, and we have a back test of all these peaks over here, and what we really want to see is just a break above this 382, which is similar to where we were at, I think, with AMP. I believe. So yeah, this right here, this $23 range, if we could get above that $24 range, I think that'll look really solid, but that means we're in accumulation right now. A retest, oh my god, if this could even come back to kind of where it started dropping around $128 to like $180, that'd be a 2,000% move. So yeah, a little would go a long way in the event that this does ride the alt season, recovery slash bull trend. But when you look at a chart like this and you see the way that it was launched and everything that it went through, and I remember it going from like being not even a thing to like top 5 market cap if you exclude exclude stable coins. This was already like just launched at in the top 10, I believe, if you include stables. I remember that very vividly back in 2021 alt season. Anyways, yeah, this I need to move on from this. There's really not too much to add, just because of the relationship that it has with this particular chart that we're working with, and the fact that I can't get the cleanest fibs. And yeah, we have just very limited data, unfortunately. No prior cycle to talk about. Yeah. All right, we're looking at reserve rights. So this was one that there was some trouble with, because one of the charts that's available, it has this horrible scam wick that kind of messes up all the data. But I just copied and pasted the data and matched it to be similar. So right here we have the bottom of 2020. And we've returned back to that during the selling climax. And I guess I've covered this chart in the past. The way that I pulled the fib was the same way I was just talking about it earlier, where you see this bounce right here and then the break lower. That's where I like to pull that fib. And we've come back to this 1618 and gone even deeper into the lows of the prior cycle, which it happens. It happens a lot with these speculative altcoins. But the way this moved up was pretty explosive, about a 500% move off that pivot right there. And then since, we've had a almost 80% mid-cycle correction and another crazy bounce of 100%. So this is a real volatile asset, And judging with the fact that it's topped in alt season at the same time as everything else, then I would kind of align it with the belief that it will go into an alt season and top with everything else the next time too. We just want to look at this area right here of about 50 cents. So the reason I bring up 50 cents is naturally it's the top of the 786, but then also around this territory of multiple rejections. And then we have this initial peak right here around 40 cents, which is at the 702. So if we have a two cycle peaks, where we have one come up with Bitcoin price discovery, it makes it to the 702, then maybe we have a 0.5 fib situation and then blast into the end of the cycle. That would make some sense to look out for that 50-cent peak potentially, but a lot of action around that 702 in the golden pocket. Not bad. I mean, it's been on a pretty rough downtrend though for almost 3 years. 99% of its value lost. It had a nice jump. It came back to the 236, and that's something that I brought up a little bit earlier. The bounce off the 236 is great to see, but we need a structural, trend reversal, which for me, it would have to be a break above this 382. So kind of similar analysis for a lot of these projects in general. It was covered a lot last week too, when I was covering all those altcoin charts. So I'm going to leave it at that. Been a really wild week in the matrix. Some of these red pills when we're going through the altcoins at this stage in the cycle, I know it's not the most exciting stuff to talk about, but that's why I try to bring as much value as I can with the decodes and the way we open up these podcasts. I hope you appreciated everything we covered today. We got into World War III Decoded, talking about March and April of next year, which would very much be the catalyst for a potential deeper pullback in March and April of next year, aligned with the start of the lunar cycle, and timing the first cycle peak for Bitcoin somewhere there into the Chinese New Year or even the month of February, giving us a little time to work with. We have that black moon in December, so we're really ahead of the game here. Got a week out this Biden event possible with 82 days before his 82nd birthday on the 82 date numerology. That would be August 30th. That's going to be fun to see how that plays out because we have a lot going on with these elections. I would assume it would have something to do with him or something to do with the US elections. And then we have that key date that I brought up for December. So you definitely go back and listen to that. Lots of information shared in that decode. Apologies about the internet kind of cutting my stream of consciousness earlier, but it's great that we were able to recover and get it filmed anyways and get it out there. I appreciate every single one of you. Wishing you all a beautiful rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.